So the rematch between South Africa and Australia has just taken place. 30 points to 22, the win for the Springboks, and they now go 1-1 up against the Australians. And at South Africa, this game was stressful, to say the least. There were a huge amount of handling errors that I think at times kept each other in the game. There were some big moments, some big performances from certain players, and in this review, we're going to be looking through at who stepped up and also maybe who didn't quite have the game that they would have been after. And this contest, but jumping straight into it, the South African try scorers, there were 3 of them, the first of which was scored by Kane Moody. It was off the cross kick from Handré Pollard. Kwagga Smith and then Eben Etzebeth managed to score the first try that South Africa have got for themselves in a second half of this year's Rugby Championship. The Wallabies, they were not going down without a fight. They managed to get themselves 3 tries, one with Corey Toole, one with Max Jorgensen, and then the last for Brandon Paenga-Mosa. It was a real mixed bag in terms of what type of tries that we did see, but 2 of the Australian tries were more so from the South African mistakes, which is a bit similar to what we saw in the first test. But I think a big concern for Australia at the moment is the amount of injuries that they suffered in this game. Within about 4 minutes, we saw Tom Wright make his way off the field for Andrew Callaway, who up until a last-minute handling error did have a very solid performance in that fullback role. We did see the injury of Nick White. He took a nasty knock on his head to the ground, so he went off, and Tate McDermott, making his way on, had quite a good impact for the Australians too. And then also Joseph Suaalii not returning after the halftime break. That brought on Tane Edmed, so all 3 back replacements for Australia already on the park after the 40 minutes for the Springboks. They didn't have a huge amount of injuries throughout this game. We did see Ruan Nokia had a bit of a knee knock earlier on in the game, but he was very strong throughout this contest alongside Arge Snyman. Those 2 were getting physical in the breakdowns. The line-out was a lot better than we did see in the last match as well. But overall, I think it was those experienced heads that did make the big difference. Cheslin Colby, Damien Dialende, and Handré Pollard as well. Now, Pollard kicked 100% throughout this contest. He was on fire with the boot. Him and Grant Williams is an interesting pairing as that 9 and 10 combo, and hopefully we do get to see a little bit more of it in the future. Perhaps it could even be starting up against New Zealand in a couple weeks' time. But Colby, he seemed to be safe under the high ball. Same can be said about Kane Moody, even though he had a couple late mistakes that maybe put a bit more of a dampener on his overall performance. But under the high ball, Jorgensen and Toole, they were struggling to win that aerial battle up against the Springbok side. Also, Damien Dialende and Jesse Kriel in the middle of the field. It just shored up the defence so much for South Africa. There were less line breaks, less opportunities for Australia to be able to score tries, and that was probably the big difference in this match compared to the last. South Africa just a little bit more strategic with the way that they played throughout this contest. Kwagga Smith, he was moved into the starting lineup rather than Jean-Luc Dupré due to a late illness that ruled him out, but Kwagga was strong at number 8. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him start up against New Zealand. For the Australians, we saw a lot of Rob Valentini throughout this game after he missed test match number 1 due to an injury, and I do think there's a lot of potential at the moment for Corey Toole out on that left wing. Same with Jorgensen. If those 2 can win a couple more high balls, they will be extremely dangerous after both getting themselves the tries. But nonetheless, that is a quick little summary of what happened in this contest. South Africa sit 3rd on the Rugby Championship standings with 4 points. Australia not receiving the bonus point from this game due to being that little bit further behind outside of the 7-point margin, but they will still be ahead of South Africa on the overall table. They are sitting on the 5 points, but there are big questions around who will be available for those upcoming contests for South Africa as well as the Wallabies. Only 2 weeks' time until that Eden Park Test match. I know that it's been considered as the most anticipated match of the year. This one was talked about as one of the most anticipated as well, though, because everyone wanted to see if the Springboks could get their redemption story going. And they did just that. It was still not perfect, but I don't think that's the end of the world for South Africa here, because if they can keep on getting that little bit better, they've now got 2 weeks to regroup, get ready for those matches up against New Zealand, and then in Auckland, show exactly what they can do. But let me know what you thought of this match, ladies and gentlemen. Are you happy with the result? Did it go the way that you expected, and who would you give your man of the match to? I know that Andre Pollard got the actual man of the match award, but there were quite a few other crucial parts of the Springboks side that resulted in the victory. But thank you all very much for watching. We are doing the live commentary for the match between New Zealand and Argentina that is starting in only a couple hours time, so be sure to check that out as well, and I will see you all for the next one.